Hello, everyone. Jimothy Cool and I have selected 10 hot takes each from our viewers, and we're going to discuss them. For those of you that don't know, Jimothy Cool is primarily an ADV or Gen 3 OU player, the host of the massive ADV Revival and Gymvitational tournaments, and of course, he has a very successful YouTube channel, which I will link in the description. Jim, thank you very much for joining.
Hello, Pink Across Nation. It's me, Jim. Happy to be here. Big fan of your channel too, Pink Across. Let's read some scorching takes from the viewers, why don't we?
All right, I'll start it off. First, we've got a take by Ni-Afoti02, who says, banning hazards would positively impact the metagame, as many Pokemon who usually run heavy-duty boots will now be able to run other items, and would make Gholdengo more balanced. I know you're a big fan of Gholdengo, Jim. This take, it's kind of interesting. Banning hazards, something that has not happened, as far as I'm aware, ever. What are your thoughts?
I disagree. I think hazards are very important. I think without hazards, defensive play would be too powerful. And I think that, in my opinion, one of the signs of a good metagame is how the hazard interactions occur. Like, who are the hazard setters and how do they match up against the hazard removers? I think often problems arise with surrounding hazards if there's not enough hazard removal in the metagame, or the matchups are skewed one way or the other. Like in Gen 9, I think the problem is not really hazards themselves, it's like the Pokemon in the hazard metagame. There's not enough defog. There's the rapid spinners you see are like the same ones every time because they monopolize that role. Like Great Tusk is the big one. That's probably where the problem lies, more so than hazards themselves, in my opinion. Because hazards can be healthy and fine if there's appropriate balance between the hazard removers and setters, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like mostly a fair analysis. I would say I disagree a little bit with the idea that, hazards in Gen 9 removal is the only problem. Hazards did get some really wacky buffs. Like Cleaver's terrible, obviously, but Hisui and Samurott setting spikes with a super powerful Ceaseless Edge is crazy. And then Gholdengo coming in and blocking defog. It was kind of a perfect storm on the form of hazards kind of being a little too much and removal getting just totally destroyed that led to this situation. So I definitely get the temptation to want to ban hazards, and there's a lot about that would be appealing, but I'm inclined to agree that it would probably make bulky teams way too powerful. So yeah, probably not a good idea.
I guess I would say if hazards are too much of a problem, wouldn't you ban Gholdengo rather than hazards? Gholdengo is the thing preventing the hazards from being removed reliably.
Yeah, that
not that I think Gholdengo should be banned myself, but I think that would be a more logical direction to take if it was such a problem.
I would agree. Yeah.
All right, I got this one from Ectobogan4732 from my comments. It says, the OU Council is rotted and takes ages to make decisions that are often either useless, dumb, or too late. People in command are incompetent, and they are the main reason of the downfall of 6v6 since Gen 8.
Well, that is
a hot take. I picked this one because it's very dramatic, and I feel like a lot of people have this attitude. I've seen a lot. As a YouTuber, you see this a lot, where it's like the OU Council is corrupt and rotten to the core, and they don't know what they're doing. I don't know. I think that it's a thankless job being a Smogon Council guy. It's they're volunteers. I think that they have good intentions, and whether you agree or disagree with the choices they end up making, I don't know. I feel like it's just tough. It's just hard.
Yeah, I think
this
thankless
is being a bit dramatic in my opinion.
Oh yeah, thankless is the perfect way to put it, honestly. Like, because the other thing is, everyone is going to be unhappy with you in a council position, no matter what. We cannot do a pure democracy where everybody votes all the time. It already takes a really long time to do suspect tests. Like, we're still refining Gen 9 because thanks to Terra, we need to ban everything. And also, I'm gonna be dropping a video on why we need to ban Dragonite soon, so it's not over. And if I had my way, it wouldn't be close to over. I mean, this tier is really, really messed up. But on one hand, you've got people saying, like, this comment says, you know, too late is one of the complaints. For the council to fix anything in a reasonable amount of time, they need to just make a call and say this Pokemon's going, and then people would be outraged at their tyranny. So there really is no solution. As far as the downfall of 6v6, I think that's for a few factors. First, it's not really a downfall. There are still more people playing. It's just that VGC got a lot more popular, and that has something to do with Wolfie, his YouTube channel popping off, and VGC just becoming more mainstream. And I don't see that as a problem. So I would agree that Pokemon has been declining this generation, but I just think that's because Generation 9 has Tera, and as a mechanic for a competitive game, Tera is awful. And I'm really looking forward to this not being the main metagame, but to say that that's the council's fault, I see no evidence of that.
I agree. I think that blaming the council is weird because they clearly are balancing primarily around doubles, with most of the decisions they make balance-wise. The main competitive format they're aware of when they're designing. And this has resulted in stuff like, Espathra, which is nothing in doubles, but ridiculous in singles. Or like, all the boost sweepers we've seen, Terra exacerbating this problem. Even in Gen 8, like, Gyarados Dynamax. How the hell is that reasonable in singles? They're clearly not designing around singles. So for 6v6 singles to eventually become a competitive metagame, decisions have to be made, And it's interesting that Gen 8 was used as an example, because I would say Gen 8 is actually like a point in Smogon's favor, because by the end of Gen 8 OU, the metagame is good. Like, it's a balanced metagame that people still enjoy to this day.
Yeah.
I think that
credit to Ectobogan. I think he said since. I think since Gen 8 is meaning like after Gen 8, like as in over the course of Gen 9. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what that means. But I am pretty tired, so maybe I'm totally wrong about that.
That could be what they mean, yeah.
All right, let's talk. Speaking of Tera and Gen 9, Jahim says Tera Blast should be suspected. This is one I've heard a lot. I honestly think this is a bad take. I don't think it fixes the problem. Like, Tera Blast it's not like a lot of the broken sweepers are using Tera Blast. Something like a Dragonite, for example, which is, and Roaring Moon, which was problematic. They used Tera Blast, absolutely, and they were problematic. But their defensive Tera types were, and just, non-Tera Blast sets, which were the majority, were still very, very problematic. And also a lot of kind of more interesting Tera users use Tera Blast. Like CB Dragapult using Tera Blast Ghost is cool. Even like things like Thunderous Theory and using Tera Blast. A lot of Pokemon got used like Tera Blast flying, like Choice Band and Choice Scarf Landorus, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of like half fixing the problem. Like, yes, a lot of Pokemon that were banned would be unbanned if Tera Blast were instead removed from the tier, but there would still be a ton of broken Tera sweepers. So it's kind of like just cutting the problem in half.
Yeah, I think you could consider it, because without Tera Blast in the game, Regieleki would be fine. I think Roaring Moon would also be a little bit. Roaring Moon would probably still be broken, but one of the reasons it got super problematic was because of the Terra Fairy set with Tera Blast, right? Because that was like perfect coverage.
But yeah, for sure. I mean, like Volcarona would be fine. Regieleki would be fine. Probably you could bring back Roaring Moon. Maybe, I mean, honestly, probably not, but you give it a go. But then things like Gouging Fire are still broken. Magirna is still going to be broken. Like Espathra is still going to be broken. So it's like, yeah, it fixes some, but it's kind of like a weird not random, because it's one of the main ways you could restrict Tera, but I feel like if you're not fixing the problem, you might as well just let the Pokemon that want to use Tera Blast have Tera Blast.
Yeah, I think there are fun uses for it too, like you said, giving stab to things that don't have it, or even like there's a commitment associated with it. You have to Terra to get it, and it's useless otherwise. I think that sort of inherently feels balanced. And most of the Pokemon that abused Tera Blast were kind of broken anyway. I honestly think Volcarona will probably still be insane, even with Tera Blast banned.
Yeah, I
Or
agree. I think
Regieleki is an
Volk.
exception because it literally has no coverage, so it needs Tera Blast. But that's like one example, you know.
Yeah, no, Regieleki would be like NU if it didn't have Terra Blast.
Yeah.
It would be in a rough state.
Hidudupu says Explosion should not have been nerfed, which is interesting. Explosion, back in old gens, in gens 4 and prior, had effectively 500 base power, because while you're using it, it halves the enemy's defense. Same with Self-Destruct, which is 400 power, I think, has that same halving effect. And it was a big part of those metagames. You could like almost one-shot anything, even if you have no attack stat, you can use Explosion just because the power is so high. And like the ridiculous things in Gen 3, like Choice Band, Metagross, Explosion could just one-shot Skarmory, just one-shot it. Forretress coming in, like it doesn't matter if you resist, it doesn't matter if you have physical defense, it could just one-shot anything.
That does sound broken, but at the same time, translating that to a current metagame where we have, I mean, stats are higher, which I guess would apply to Explosion users too, but I mean, you generally don't want to, like, still, letting a Pokemon die is not great. We have a lot of really bulky steel types. We have a lot of ghost types. Ghost types are great. So maybe it would be okay. I could kind of see it becoming kind of a toxic guessing game where, like, do you click the Explosion and kill everything, or do you like predict the ghost type? So I don't know how I feel about this one. I feel like I could go either way.
I think it'd be cool if they added a new move that's like Super Explosion, and it's basically Old Explosion, and they gave it to a select Pokemon. Honestly, give it to Metagross, because Metagross is not that good. If Metagross had Super Explosion, that'd be fun.
What
One-shot
Metagross needs
Corviknight or
is
something.
shift gear. It deserves shift gear. We
True.
gotta, yeah.
That'd be cool too. I
So,
honestly would be down. I got a soft spot for Old Explosion. I think it creates kind of fun decisions. I'm an old gen player though, so I'm a bit biased.
yeah, that's fair. I mean, I guess all the modern exploit they made like Misty Explosion, which was just the worst move ever for no reason. It's like 5 base power stronger than Moonblast. For what? Like, it's just that's sad.
Yeah, you sometimes use that on like leads to just pivot out, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, they've been that was almost just kind of an insult to Explosion as a whole.
exactly.
Peach Willow says Showdown should add some pseudo-random distribution to reduce the amount of unfairness without changing the actual effective moves. So, pseudo-random, I mean, I guess there are a lot of ways to implement it, but in this case, it might be like Hydro Pump misses on every 5th turn you use it instead of, you know, Hydro Pump misses whenever.
Interesting. I think it's a it's a slippery slope of modding the game, right?
Yeah.
It's a fine idea. I think like maybe you test that in a fan meta, like an almost any ability type thing, like some sort of balanced RNG metagame. That could be cool.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a proof of concept, maybe. But I don't know. I think that what they'd have to do is, in an official game, overhaul the RNG to work differently. I would love to see that. I would love to see them like redesign all the RNG stuff from the ground up.
Mm.
Yeah, even with more eyes on VGC, there's people who are upset about like Parrot and Sleep over there too, right? That create
Mm-hmm.
variants that's uncompetitive. And RNG is a part of this game, but I think they could definitely redesign some of it.
Oh yeah, no, I
I think
agree.
like
I like the accuracy in general feels like just a terrible method of balancing a move. I hate it, especially 95 accuracies. Like, why is high horsepower 95 accuracy? It's already contact
I
and weaker than
yeah, I hate
earthquake.
95 accuracy. In particular, I think Hydro Pump is fine. Because like most Pokemon that get Hydro Pump also get Surf, so it's a choice in the builder.
Mhm.
And like it sort of feels balanced. Like it misses often enough in practice. When you see Hydro Pump, you usually see it miss one or two times in a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I would like more choice too. Like, I wish every Pokemon that had Focus Blast had Aura Sphere. I don't think
Yeah,
that's
there's
too
so
much
many
to ask.
scenarios where you have to run Focus Blast,
It's
and that's
brutal.
kind of annoying. Next one for me is from Panda Pig 192, and this is one I've seen constantly, to be honest. I would not call this a hot take, but interesting to talk about anyway. I don't think Smogon should be so scared of complex bands. That's what they said, which is a common sentiment in my comments anyway. I've seen it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think like yes and no in my opinion, because the example I brought up in a video once was in Gen 4 the Frostlass example, because they in Gen 4 there was this like stupid Hail team that would use Hail, Frostlass, and like sub spam to just get evasion with Snowcloak, and that's obviously stupid. Not fun to play against. Literally completely anti-competitive. So they banned Snowcloak, but unfortunately, Frostlass's only ability is Snowcloak, so Frostlass is banned entirely, even though Frostlass was used as a pretty solid lead Pokemon. Not to abuse evasion, just not even on a Hail team, just as like a Spike setter with Taunt and like Ice Ghost Stab. That was actually good, and Icy Wind for some lead matchups and stuff. So losing that option was really unfortunate. It was actually like a valid option that enabled certain teams. So in that instance, they could have just done a complex ban, like ban the combination of Snow Warning plus Snowcloak on a team,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just banning Snowcloak. That would preserve the valid option of Frostlass, which is like a genuine part of the format, while solving the problem of like the evasion abusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
But
mean that
like
seems
for the
like pretty
most part,
valid. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I was just
yeah.
gonna say, yeah, that seems valid. I mean, it's at the end of the day, you want to do what's going to make the most people enjoy the game because we're all just here trying to have fun. And it seems like in that case, more people would have fun if Frostlass, that complex ban was implemented. In a lot of cases, I do feel like complex bans kind of undermine the point of usage based tiering. And it's also just a very slippery slope. And of course, with complex bans, like in this case of the Frostlass example, it's very clear what to do. Everyone's like, okay, just, ban Snow Warning or maybe Hail, the move Hail even, whatever you need to do, plus Frostlass or plus a Snowcloak Pokemon. Totally reasonable. If someone say like, oh, well, my favorite Pokemon got banned from OU, I want to keep it here, let's take away some of its moves, then that gets a lot more difficult. But in cases like this, where everyone kind of wants the same thing, and it's going to make the metagame better, and like, why not? Yeah, I'd say this is a pretty
I
good
think that
take.
the Frostlass thing is a pretty rare case. It's a rare scenario where I would say a complex ban is justified. But yeah, a lot of people make this argument in places where I think it's an extreme. It should be an extreme course of action to preserve something genuinely important or valuable. But when Machamp got banned in Gen 4, people said, "Why don't you just complex ban the combination of Machamp plus Dynamic Punch?" And that would just preserve Machamp without Dynamic Punch, which is a garbage Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like other fighting types that do the same thing, like Hariyama, with most of the same traits. It's like you don't break out the emergency button for something that's not that important. In my like, you should break out the emergency button if it's preserving something that the player base all thinks is really valuable. Like in Gen 3, they've done complex bans. They have to preserve stat passing. Like Carmine Baton Pass Celebi is a valid part of the metagame that people want to preserve. Swords Dance Pass Celebi. So they've done specific complex bans surrounding Baton Pass instead of banning the move Baton Pass altogether, which would eliminate like not only pivoting options. Baton Pass are just used for pivoting, but also like Swords Dance Pass Celebi to Aerodactyl teams, which I like to play. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and those aren't broken at all.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a complex ban I'm a big fan of, and I wish we saw that in SVOU because dry passing would be really great for evolutions, and Hatterene. Hatterene would absolutely love to have a pivoting move.
Yeah, I think Gen 5 has like dry passing is allowed, but stat passing not.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can also sub Baton Pass, but that's it. You can't
Yeah.
pass any stats. Maybe they could have that in Gen 9,
I think that'd be perfect for
honestly.
Gen 9. Any stat passing would be too much in a metagame with Terra, but passing a sub, if you can get up a sub and pass it and keep it intact, I think you deserve to pass the sub.
That could be worth trying, yeah.
All
But
right.
yeah,
So, oh, sorry, go for it.
I think complex bans are like an extreme, very emergency option that should be used to like add something important to a metagame or uh, preserve something important, basically. And they are a little bit averse to using them, even in those cases. So I'd sort of agree, but I think a lot of people want complex bans in situations where I think it's not justified. Like it's a bit too much for those contexts. Anyway, yeah, moving on.
I'd agree, yeah. So MDoll says, Great Tusk is the healthiest top 1 usage mon we ever had for any OU format. So it's basically what? We've got like Snorlax as I guess one, and then there's, I don't know, Tauros, and then Tyranitar, I guess in Gen 3, probably Jirachi in Gen 4, and then it's been Landorus since then until Great Tusk, right? Does that seem like a pretty fair summary?
Gen 5 is Latios. I think Gen 6 is Excadrill, actually. Gen
Oh,
7
you're right.
Landorus.
No, you are right. It is Excadrill. Okay, so yeah, Excadrill in Gen 6, and then yeah, I guess
Gen 7
Latios.
Landorus. Gen 8 probably also Landorus.
Oh yeah, Gen 8's definitely Landorus. Okay, so
And Gen 9 Tusk. Yeah, I really like Tusk. I think he's a solid top 1 mon or top 1 usage mon. I think he's I like a utility ground type with, offense and utility at the same time. Can't really go too wrong.
yeah.
I would, Gen 3 player, I would say good old Tyranitar is my favorite. I love Tyranitar. I think Sand makes the metagame better by literally nerfing all defensive blobs at once. Like, that's huge. And his set variety is just so good. Like, there's like Pursuit Tar enables whole team archetypes. Dragonet's Tar centers the metagame around certain defensive options that I think are very cool and healthy. Like Swampert is prominent because Tyranitar's prominent and Swampert's awesome. I would say Tyranitar, personally. But
Yeah. I mean, my Gen 3 experience is limited, but based on what you're saying and, from what I've gotten from watching Gymvitational and ADV Revival, I would say you're probably right. I think Tyranitar is offering more to the metagame than Great Tusk. Like, if Great Tusk left the tier tomorrow, the tier would not crumble. It would be rough. We'd be losing a really good utility option, but the tier would not fall apart like it would if Tyranitar left, and in a bad way. So I'd say, yeah, Great Tusk is not bad. I like Great Tusk, but probably Gen 3 Tyranitar is healthiest.
yeah, I think if Tusk goes, there's still Iron Trebs, there's still Lando, still Garchomp, there's Gliscor, plenty of bulky grounds. I guess you'd lose like the best spinner, probably be bad for the meta, but you lose Tyranitar, I think Gen 3 is not the same format at all. It's like a whole different, and it's like Suicune's number 1, Blissy's number 1, which is just grim, With Tyranitar, the metagame skews towards like much cooler Pokemon. All right, I'll read one here from Jimbonium F. This is quite a take. Honestly, I think pivoting moves should be even more widely distributed, and there should be more pivoting moves of different types. It's not one I've heard before, and it's interesting. What do you think? I think from our conversations, you're pretty fond of pivoting as a mechanic. Like,
I
it's
am.
big in Gen 8. There's a lot of pivoting in Gen 8, and you're fond of Gen 8.
Yeah, no, I love pivoting as a mechanic. I think, generally the Pokemon that are best at switching in are the Pokemon that have really good stats, really bulky. Ideally, something that can take a hit and then deliver a really strong hit back. So when you have pivoting moves, the more pivoting moves you have, the more Pokemon can enter safely, which allows you to use a lot more interesting, frail offensive Pokemon. So generally, yes. That being said, more pivoting moves of different type that could get really dangerous really fast. Like, pivoting moves have been pretty carefully chosen thus far. If you think about the ones that do damage, because a lot of them do, you got like Teleport, Baton Pass, Chilly Reception that aren't doing damage. That is very intentional. Volt Switch has an immunity. in being, you can just stop it with a ground type, which is big.
And
Bug
Bug
is
has a lot of
resisted. Yeah,
resistances.
you like almost everything is resisting U-turn. And then you've got flip turn, which is kind of, I guess flip turn is more so limited by its distribution, which is not super high, but then also it's, only 60 base power, whereas Volt Switch and U-turn are 70. So they, kind of nerfed it on the power. And then also you kind of have water absorb too. But if you were to keep making pivoting moves, I could see that being problematic. You don't want Pokemon to be able to just click attacks and switch out into a counter. It's really, really good. Pivoting is good enough as it is. So if we're going to add more pivoting moves, we've got to make sure they're balanced. And I have a tough time seeing a world in which like a dark type pivoting move is balanced.
I think that's a great point that like the two main pivoting moves are restricted in how offensively threatening they can be. I guess a sneak peek into how that could look is like low kicks with tinted lens, choice band U-turn is like such a free click. It's like kind of half the reason the guy's any good. And you'd look at low kicks, it's frail, it has low attack. Imagine like Dragapult with a ghost pivoting move or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or King Gambit with a dark pivoting move. Those are extreme examples, but imagine if the guy does a lot of damage and also pivots out. That's another would be like Barraskewda flip turn, which is kind of an ignorant thing you can click. And that only has 60 power, but in rain with Barraskewda, it's like, a nuke that also pivots you out. It's so
Mm-hmm.
strong.
Oh yeah, in Gen 8 it's absolutely amazing. I mean it's pretty terrible in Gen 9 because every common priority user one shots Barraskewda and Wellspring is everywhere, but if those factors weren't in place, which they weren't in Gen 8, you kind of did have this like really easy free to click CB Barraskewda that a lot of people disliked, and I kind of get it. You as a team builder, I love it when plays are completely free because I feel like I'm doing a good job with my teams. But as far as battling goes, I definitely understand why people don't like that. All
I
right,
guess
so
like you can look at Gen 8 as an example of a metagame where widely distributed pivoting has sort of an interesting and arguably positive impact.
mhm,
But yeah, if they're attacks, it's dangerous depending on the scenario.
mhm. Yeah, for sure. All right, now this is a hot take for sure. We've got one from Chrysanthemum Floret saying freeze isn't broken, and I'm taking this to mean that the mechanic is fine, which I'd say freeze is by far the worst status condition. I hate the way it operates, and I think it should be removed or adjusted, wildly adjusted immediately.
That's interesting. Interesting. Phrase is not broken. Uh, Sometimes freeze is like an out. Like you spam an ice beam and hoping for it. And like sometimes it almost feels like you deserve to get frozen in certain scenarios. Like you're inviting it, and it's actually like a higher chance than you think.
Mm-hmm.
In some scenarios, there's like some consistency to hitting the freeze. Happens in Gen 1 all the time, obviously, because there's no status counterplay. But like hitting a freeze is kind of feels reliable if you think of it in a certain way. At the
Yeah.
same time,
Yeah.
that's like there's some control you can have over freeze happening or not happening, but the mechanic is inherently insanely. It's like a 10% chance to delete your guy. It's a little. It's. I don't know how you can argue for it in that sense.
Mhm. Yeah, the as you said, like long term freeze chances, kind of like I guess like fishing for it in a bulky, Pokemon scenario, totally fine, makes sense. As you said, it feels like you deserve it. But then you've just got like stray ice beams coming out and just like yeah, as you said, deleting a Pokemon. It's not good. I mean, I think in like Pokemon like Arceus Legends or something like that, it was kind of like a counterpart to burn. Like I don't know if it lowered your special
Yeah, it
attack and
was frostbite. You take damage and lower special attack. It's basically special version of burn.
yeah, that seems fine to me. And honestly, special attackers have had it too good for too long.
All right, so I've got one here from Kaibun, a channel member. who says the RNG factor in the game inherently makes Pokemon not competitive, at least not in a true sense. It takes agency out of the player and adds inconsistency, which is okay for a regular game, but is very unhealthy for a PvP scenario.
Hmm.
What do you think about that? I honestly think it's kind of a common take. I see this a lot, that competitive Pokemon's laughed at as like a casino.
Yeah, I mean
But
that's yeah, this is kind of a cold take, but I'll say I agree with it. I mean, competitive Pokemon, I play Pokemon because I like how much you can customize. You can be so creative with your team. Even in super old generations, like even in Gen 3, there are strategies that have never been tried before that, are seeing the light of day. So it's like and then I love the designs, I like the moves, fond memories from childhood, a lot of reasons I play Pokemon. uh, I dislike the RNG. I wish it was not part of the game. I wish accuracy wasn't a thing. I wish secondary effects were toned down. I would basically, I mean, some variance is exciting and adds some a greater depth of skill to the game, so I wouldn't say I'd get rid of it completely. But yeah, I think the way Pokemon is designed does hurt it as a competitive game and makes it worse.
I think that like RNG being in a game doesn't inherently make it uncompetitive. Like you got competitive poker is well respected. There's people who are, winning poker players over time, even though that game is not completely random, but there's a lot of randomness. Like competitive Magic the Gathering, any card game, I don't know, backgammon or something. There's always like there's
Yeah,
plenty of good competitive games where you can be skilled and there's RNG. I don't know. I think that I felt people dismiss competitive Pokemon because it has RNG in it, despite like the RNG being in a competitive game is not a completely unique idea. And Pokemon has a lot to love as a competitive game. It's a very unique battle system. The speed mechanic means like there's simultaneous turns. You can make predictions. Team building is a fun exercise of creativity. You can you look at a player like ABR who is incredibly consistent and can claw back from a terrible position even after getting unlucky. Builds teams to reduce ROG as much as possible.
mm.
I think that, like, yes, there's some RNG in the game that is poorly designed, like 10% freeze chance, like Icy Wind, 5% miss chance, but some of it I think is fine. An example I always use is Body Slam, Lava Plume. Like, those moves just have a 30% chance to inflict the status effect. And there's immunities associated. Lava Plume cannot burn fire types. Lava Plume is low impact on like certain regenerated Pokemon, or like Lava Plume does not feel frustrating to play against because you have enough control against it, and you 30% is high enough that it's like worth playing around. But Ice Beam Freeze is stupid, not because of the RNG, but because Ice Beam is a stab move anyway. They're not clicking it to fish for the freeze, but sometimes you go into a resist and get frozen. It doesn't feel like you had control because that was the play you were going to make anyway. 10% is not high enough for you to uh, like reasonably play around that. Sometimes you can, but a lot of the time you literally cannot. Like there's little you can do. I think that the RNG is fine as long as that you feel like you have enough control over it. And there's always going to be outlier scenarios where you get screwed. You have little options. Oftentimes there's more player agency involved in those situations than people realize though. If you actually analyze your game, a game where you feel like you got screwed, there was probably a decision you could have made 5 turns before that would have eliminated that scenario from even happening in the first place.
Yeah.
That's why ABR is so good, as he sees those things. There's Gen 1 players that are incredibly consistent, even though Gen 1 is viewed as this complete RNG casino fest. But the more depth you uncover as you play the format more, gives you more control. There's Gen 1 players that have a lot of control over like what happens in the game because they just understand the format so deeply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you make a lot of good points. I'd say I can agree with everything you said. There are some aspects of the game that are poorly designed, but you definitely can overcome it. And I will say, as just kind of echoing what you said, if you think bad luck was why you lost a game, it was almost certainly bad. It was almost, well, I'm not going to say bad. Non-optimal playing combined with bad luck is 99% of the time what really lost you the game. Pokemon is a game where really to have a consistency of a player like ABR, you can't just make good plays or even great plays. You need to make the best play. And if you do that with considering the probability of, RNG, you will perform very consistently, despite how often it may feel like people can just get screwed over.
Yeah. And I'll also read the next take is kind of a counter to this in my one from Reuniclus. RNG is an aspect of Pokemon, and people should accept it, and there's no need to be salty. If you want to play a game that is consistent, go play chess. And I think I agree with that. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, the Pokemon is Pokemon, and I think you're accepting a level of like variance happening, outlier scenarios. There are times you get screwed. There's literally nothing you could do. But I think people are quick to call Pokemon a terrible competitive game, even though I think it's very unique. Team building is a unique thing. Like the decision making in Pokemon is, you could compare it maybe to a card game, but it's not. There's more interactivity. There's more going on. There's like wonderful mechanics happening. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as I say, like this thing of, if you want to play a game that's consistent, go play chess. I wouldn't say that's exactly fair because, as I said, there are a lot of people like myself that came to Pokemon because we love all the things you just talked about, team building, the creativity, the interesting battling system. But we dislike it. And we don't dislike it enough to stop playing. But we think it'd be better without it. So, like I don't want to play chess because chess is not nearly as interesting. I would like if the RNG were toned down. But yeah, as for there being no need to be salty, yeah, I mean that's fair. It's a game you're trying to have fun, unless you're one of the few people that are making careers out of Pokemon, and like specifically not just making career out of Pokemon, but like you need it to win. Like I don't know of anyone who's living off prize money. I don't think there's enough in that. But yeah, generally speaking, just try to have fun with the game. Everyone's going to get angry sometimes, but just if you're not having fun, take a break, go outside, touch grass,
Yep.
All right, so I've got a take here from it's kind of up your alley. Dragapult Rules says Ninjask should be banned in ADVOU. It serves no legitimate, skillful, or consistent niche at all, and the only thing it can do is cheese wins through uninteractive, skillless games that can even involve fishing for hacks with Sand Attack.
I'm one of the first people who made this argument. You can go to like one of the Baton Pass threads on Smogon before my YouTube channel was getting any views. I was like in the weeds of that, out saying, you know what? All this Baton Pass, all these complex rulings about Baton Pass, why don't we just kill the final boss here? Why don't we just ban Ninjask? It always comes back to Ninjask. He's the one that causes the problems in Gen 3 because he's faster than everything. He's got speed boost and Baton Pass. So you can consistently pass speed to a guy, and there's so many game breaking ways that people have found to use Ninjask with like Mr. Mime, with taunt strategies. Like the common one is just Ninjask Magneton to eliminate Skarmory. A lot of teams have Skarmory as their only phasing, so you get rid of Skarmory and Ninjask just passes to a Marowak, swords dances and sweeps everything.
Yeah, that does sound pretty toxic. As a person who absolutely loves Ninjask and Baton Pass, I personally enjoy it, but by any objective measure, you're absolutely right. That sounds terrible.
Well, I don't know. A lot of people like Ninjask and they think it's fun. I just think like what I love about Gen 3 is not. It's like playing against a combo deck in a card game. You're sort of waiting for them to form Exodia, and if they have it, they have it. If they don't, they don't. You have no control. You don't really get to play the game. You're just like hoping they don't get it or something.
Yeah,
and it's
no,
like they're often fishing for a matchup where you don't have raw, or they're just like there's like 150-50 that decides the game, and if you guess wrong, sorry, buddy. Like Gen 3 is a format where there's like a lot of back and forth. You don't usually have like one big swing turn that decides everything. It's usually like both players are trying to find their footing and like figure out the pressure points, and it's like nuanced and fun. Ninjask takes that away and turns it into a like one-dimensional. Okay, now I just have to stop the Ninjask from doing this one thing, and I don't love the gameplay that creates.
Well,
So
Jim, I think I know
yeah,
one person who would be opposed to a Ninjask ban, and that is Magikarpador, who says bans should only be seen as an emergency option when something is completely over-centralizing and making the game revolve around it. What do you think of that take?
um, isn't that kind of the number one scenario where bans take place?
I would
Like
say not
Dracovish.
exactly. Well, like, so yeah, Dracovish, that was over centralizing. I mean, Seismitoad was everywhere. But like Roaring Moon, for example, the game was not revolving around Roaring Moon. It was just a really good sweeper that was too good at sweeping.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't above everything else like Chi-Yu or something back in the day, or
Yeah.
Palafin.
And then there are a lot of Pokemon that get banned that aren't even that good. They're just like, for example, that this Frostlass team you were talking about in Gen 3, I'm guessing that wasn't like the best team in the metagame. It was just really irritating and good enough.
Yeah, it's just uncompetitive. I guess I would disagree with it in that sense. Like, I think evasion should be banned because it doesn't really like what does it create that's fun? It's like hope you land the hit.
Yeah.
Aerial Ace is not a like those perfectly accurate moves are not a reasonable counterplay to that because they're terrible in every other context.
Yeah. Fully
Uh,
agree.
and yeah, like in Gen 3, I think we've recently banned the the stupid like what's that item? Bright powder that just gives you base
Yeah.
evasion.
Yeah.
It's not a great item. Most of the time, leftovers is literally going to have a higher win rate, but it's just dumb. Like it's just like you lose to bright powder, and what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. And then
And
like King's Rock is
people
another
always
item that got banned for that. Like, people would run like these King's Rock hyper offense teams with Cloyster that would be flinching you and stuff. And it's like, is this the top strategy? No. Does this have a crazy good win rate in tours? No. Its usage isn't even that high, but why would we keep it around?
yeah, and then people always make the counter argument that yeah, RNG is a part of Pokemon. You have to accept that it's there. And like, why don't you mod out freeze chance from Ice Beam, or why don't you remove crits? And like the reason you're doing that is because it's like a way more extreme course of action than just banning an item. That's like banning an item is very straightforward. Like the item is banned, that's it. Modding the game to remove freeze, that's like a Herculean ordeal. That's a next level. And
Yeah, for sure. Like modifying the game and just not staying true to the cartridge, that gets into dangerous territory. We all want to play Pokemon, at the end of the day. Yeah. But yeah, I don't like this. I've been called ban happy in the past, present, and will be in the future, and I will gladly accept that title. I think bans usually make stuff better, and if banning something is going to make the metagame better, I say ban it, whether it's over centralizing or not.
yeah, I mean, look at Gen 8, which ended up in a balanced place because of a lot of action being taken, a lot of bans. All right, here's an insane take from Boss Geese. Toxapex is a cool Pokemon. That's it, but like that's crazy.
I will say,
I
the first time I
despise
saw
Toxapex.
Toxapex, the first time I laid my eyes on a Toxapex, I thought that's a cool looking Pokemon. Now, of course, as things progressed in Gen 7, I was no longer that fond of it. It's not cool in Gen 7. It is cool in Gen 9. I don't know how much you know about Toxapex in Gen 9.
Well, he doesn't
but,
have all his moves anymore.
Yeah, it got killed, basically. It lost Scald, it lost Knockoff, which is, it used to run that on almost every set. So what Toxapex mostly does now is offensive Assault Vest sets. They'll run like, Sludge Bomb, Ice Beam, Surf, Infestation, Tera Blast, Acid Spray, that kind of thing. So I would say in Gen 9, I would agree. Toxapex is a cool Pokemon. The statement that Toxapex is a cool Pokemon in general is wildly disregarding of history, I would say.
I think even visual appearance wise, he's kind of a gross creature. Like, what is he? I don't like him.
Well, it's a sea
Yeah,
urchin, I
in that
think.
sense, he's weird looking. He's like a little face in a shell. I think he looks cowardly. And Toxapex is always the example I use in my videos of like a defensive Pokemon power level going too far. The guy has everything: good typing, insane stats, like regenerator, literally best ability in the game almost.
Mhm.
Or like in the S tier. Like it's got toxic spikes, toxic scald. It just has recover as well. Why not? Baneful bunker, protect with contact poison. It also has haze to get rid of. What is it? I think it has more than even. It has knockoff. It has knockoff too. It's too much to give to one Pokemon. Whatever happened to?
Yeah, no,
Whatever happened
I
to,
get that.
restraint?
No, I can
Like,
agree that at least in Gen 7, I will agree that Toxapex is pretty overtuned. In Gen 8, it really suffered from metagame changes, and I honestly think it's basically a worse Slowbro. So I don't see it as being too bad in Generation 8, just because it was such a slower paced metagame. It was really easy to fit breakers. And of course, in Gen 9, it's offensive. But in the context of Gen 7, I agree. It's too much.
yeah, I mean, I still don't like facing it in Gen 8. It's easier to handle, but yeah.
Well, we're going to
And
shift away from metagames here a bit. We got to take from Like a Pokey, who says fire type should never miss Will-O-Wisp, and Thunderwave or electric types should not be able to miss Thunderwave. What do you think of this?
I think I like that because the poison types can't miss toxic. I think they'll be fine if fire types couldn't miss Will-O-Wisp. The simple change, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm down.
it's not a super hot take, but I do agree with it. I think, and also I feel like electric types need a little something. Like Thunderwave, they just gave Thunderwave to everything, and I think electric
Mm.
types deserve a little help. I mean, we got Raging Bolt this generation, which is really good, but for the most part, I feel like electric types have been kind of not treated too well since
Yeah, there's
since
always
quite a
that, but
while.
yeah. Uh, I have the hot take that I think Thunderwave should not have been nerfed at all. I think it should just be 100 accuracy. But
Yeah, I mean
like
that's
nine
honestly
nerfing it
that
to
makes
90
sense
is kind of
too.
unnecessary.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I mean, I hate accuracy in general. So yeah, I'd be down for Thunderwave being 100 accuracy. And if paralysis is too broken, you can change that. But accuracy, as I said, my least favorite way of balancing anything is accuracy.
Well, I think they introduced enough counterplay to Power with like electric being immune and ground types have just always been immune to Thunderwave. Plus, like there's way more status immune abilities now.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
they
think
they
100
added
accuracy
the
Thunderwave would even be a problem.
no, I think you're right. And they also it was because one of the generation where it got nerfed, if I'm correct here, is Generation 7, right? Like that was when it came with
Yeah.
90 accuracy. And Generation 6, and that was also the prankster nerf because we had prankster Pokemon clicking Thunderwave on everything. And I think that was one of the problems was 100% accurate prankster Thunderwave from like Klefki and, Thunderous Therian.
Mm.
That wouldn't happen anymore because they had the dark types able to limit that.
Yeah, even that has counterplay. True.
All right, let's see here. So, okay, all right, all right. We've got a take here from Roge Apex who says Tera is the best gimmick mechanism Pokemon has ever and will ever make. I hate this.
Interesting.
I hate it so
The
much.
next take I had it was similar. It said from Submachine Goth. This meta is one of the most fun in a long time, and Terra is an amazing mechanic. Is what they said. But your fellow went far further and said it's the best gimmick.
Yeah, I'm
Interesting.
gonna, you know what? I'm gonna say something that may anger some people. I think if you took, well, this is honestly just a fact. I think if you took a graph of like how the percentage that people like Terra and plotted it alongside Elo, you would see that on a massive scale, worse players like Terra more. I think it makes the game exciting. I think you can probably get to a higher elo than ever and go on win streaks like never before with insane Tera sweepers. Yeah, I think as a mechanic, it benefits. It makes the game less competitive and therefore benefits players that don't know what they're doing more.
That. I think that is a hot take. um, I'm of the opinion that I hate all the gimmicks. Like I feel like whatever happened to good old game design? Why do we have to define every new Pokemon game with like this is the new gimmick? You can turn into a frog now. Like I don't know. Like just make good Pokemon, man. That's what it was before. And if you have people retroactively saying that like in Gen 5 the gimmick was gems. Like no it wasn't. They didn't put gems on the box. They didn't say like the new gems mechanic. It's like the gem phenomenon. It's just an item in the game. People
Yeah.
are like retroactively going back and saying, "Oh, what was the gimmick of Gen 5?" There wasn't one. There was no gimmick. It was just a video game.
No, I mean that makes a lot of sense. I think I can get behind that. I will say I really did like Mega Evolution, but I think that had more to do with them just making cool designs and kind of cool new Pokemon. It wasn't really like
Yeah.
some random silliness they decided to add. Like I feel like just everything since Megas has felt a little odd to me. Like they've been kind of like at making it a thing instead of just having good
I think
ideas.
when Megas came out, there was no idea of like every gen has a gimmick. It was just a good idea in the new game that people loved. So they were like, we got to lean into this more. Every new game needs a Mega thing, and they almost feature creeped it too much. I think like Megas were intentionally designed Pokemon that have a drawback of like no held item, no like one per team, and that's like interesting design space. There's like gaming to be had there, you know? Like Mega Lopunny is like base Lopunny sucks, but Mega Lopunny's broken. You have like Mega Gyarados where both the base and the Mega form are different and do different things. Like Mega Slowbro is the same. It's like you can play with that mechanic and it's like inherently balanced because it also kind of the fact that Mega Stones can't be knocked off was also like a point of game balance. But then I think Z moves were garbage. That's a kind of a hot take, but I hate Z moves. It's like, what if I dealt 1 billion damage? Like that's so much less interesting than Megas, which could be. But people like Z moves not because it's like an interesting mechanic, but because like their favorite guy can use it. Everything can learn a Z move if it wants, and it's like a quantity over quality mindset, where like Megas are a better mechanic in my opinion because there are less of them and they can design each of them individually. Not everything in the game should be able to Mega Evolve. That would be absurd. It's now Dynamax is like, okay, now everything can Mega, but it's like as shallow as a puddle. Like they just have double HP and all the moves are preset. It's like not interesting compared to the Megas.
While we're talking about hot takes on this with Dynamax, I gotta say I think Gigantamax Pokemon should not have been banned with Dynamax. I think they should have just been tested. And if some were broken
separately.
Yeah, but like maybe in Gen 8, like, Gigantamax Butterfree is fine in OU. I mean, who's to say? Right? Maybe they'd all be broken. Maybe they would. But I feel like Sandaconda and Butterfree would probably be okay. And I'd have liked to see that happen. But anyway, I guess that's maybe going off on a tangent. But
doesn't Butterfree have a move that gives you a random status ailment?
Maybe Butterfree
like
wouldn't be fine.
It literally randomly statuses you. It's like poison sleep. It's like Diaclaw. I think that's what he does.
Okay, maybe it's too. But at the same time, like you could just switch in like a steel or poison, can't you? I mean, it's a Butterfree, right?
Yeah, it could get status
I don't
though.
know.
I think it's a bug move.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know the exact. I'd have to look, but I'm sure some of them were okay.
I might be
And
wrong
I
about
think
that
it would
too,
have been
but
cool.
I think that's what it did.
Yeah, but yeah, Z moves. I'd say from a team builder perspective, I kind of liked Z moves because it gave a lot more interesting options in the builder. But as far as battling goes, Z moves are kind of a travesty. Yeah, I mean you can just nuke anything and you never know what's going to use it. It's definitely not a competitive mechanic, but it was it was at least fun in the builder.
Yeah, it's better than Dynamax.
Yeah, well, Dynamax
um,
just had no vision to it either. At least with Z moves. Now, Z move attacks are not that interesting, but Z move status moves are pretty cool and had some interesting applications.
yeah, I like
Like,
those actually, but they're not as big of a part of the metagame as the attacks, like individual
no,
attacks.
unfortunately not. They probably, honestly, maybe the real problem with Z moves was not the Z moves themselves, but they just should have made it less of a boost. Like, if the attacks were less good, people would take advantage of the
Maybe.
status moves more.
Yeah, I liked like Z Celebrate Victini, Z Heal Bell was fun. You ever do Z Heal Bell? It
I
fully
did
heals you,
not.
heals your status, and then uses Heal Bell. So
Like
like
heals your health and uses heal belly.
it's a 100% heal. Yeah, I used it in
Oh,
Gen 7
okay.
Ubers on Magiana because you could like heal yourself fully and then cure all your status.
That sounds very nice.
But yeah, those were rarely used.
Mm.
As for Terra, like I think it's one of the better mechanics. I think it's better than Z moves because it's more it can be used more dynamically. Like there's at least some decision making of like where you use your Terra per game is a bit of a skillful choice to make. Like maybe this one interaction is valuable, so you Terra just for like an immunity or resist, or like which threat are you going to Terra on? Which like maybe defensive wall needs to Terra in this matchup. Like you got to
Hmm.
Terra Water your Lando because it would match up better. Like when you
Yeah,
Terra, for what purpose you Terra is more of a decision, whereas Z moves are like it's locked in from the beginning which guy on your team can use the Z move. And it's not that like you're probably Z moving just to nuke the wall. There's like 50-50s, but I would argue those are kind of bad for competitive
oh yeah.
to encourage more 50-50s like that.
No, I agree. I would say from a battling perspective, I'm totally with you. I think Terra is more skillful, less chaotic, and I mean, because yeah, I mean, not by much, because Terra Pokemon can just blow up with a Terra type you never anticipated and sweep your entire team. So in that sense, it's kind of similar to a random Z attack, just blowing up a Pokemon and killing it.
Yeah,
Um,
it is often just used like that to just do a lot of damage, the
yeah,
same way
but
Z moves were used. But yeah, there's
it
more nuance
is,
at least.
yeah, I'd say it is a more skillful mechanic in battling, but as far as in the builder, Terra devastated team building in a way that Z moves did not. And that's why I dislike Terra
Yeah,
far more than Z moves.
that's fair. You're a team builder fan, so that makes sense. From Aldwich 285. Smogon should test the Pokemon that are in OU by technicality in Gens 4 and 5. Do you know about OU by technicality?
Yes. So, well, a little bit. I mean, I know mostly in context of like mega evolutions. Explain to me what that means in Gen 4 and 5. That I'm not familiar with.
For most old gens, the tiering is frozen in time. So, like, there are some guys that are ranked OU in Gen 4 that are not good at all. But, like, back in the day, they were OU by usage. So, they have a little bracket around them in the team builder that says OU by technicality because they're like, it's like a, what do you call it? Like a heritage ranking. But in
Mm.
actuality, the Pokemon sucks. One of those is Electivire. I think Dusknoir is OU by technicality. Uh, so they could absolutely test them in lower tiers and like shift the tiers. And actually, Gen 3 literally does this. Like, Gen 3 is one of the few old gens that does this. They have a unique system where, you know, tiering is not. Because Gen 3 actually predates usage based tiering. Usage based tiering came out in Gen 4, I think, when Smogon was established and stuff. But in Gen 3, it was like a net battle, old simulators. So uh, the OU list in Gen 3 is literally like community opinion, tournament results, that kind of thing. It's like a few players come together and decide the OU list just manually. So stuff can rise out of OU and fall from UU if it's like not doing well in current tourneys. Like Regice used to be OU in Gen 3, but it fell to UUBL because like that it was better back in the day, and these days it's not super commonly seen.
Mm.
So I like that about Gen 3 that things shift and like Moltres and Charizard rose up to OU. People are saying Medicham might rise up. Like it's cool. And they've also been one of the few old gens to like shift the lower tiers a lot. Like UU had new Pokemon come out in it. And UU used to have this rule in Gen 3 where um, like NFEs weren't allowed because they didn't want it to just be OU, but with the NFE versions of all the OU Pokemon, like Metang and Pupitar and stuff. But they realized that that's a stupid rule, so they got rid of it. So now they're all like you can use Haunter and stuff. You can use all those now. Yeah, so like new Pokemon fall to UU sometimes. They test them. Same with the lower tiers below that. There's like tier shifts. But they don't do that for any other tier, I guess, because Gen 3 is a unique case where it predates the tiering system itself. So the Gen 3 community just decides all that. But in Gen 4, 5, like, for example, one of the biggest examples, Clefable is literally UU ranked in Gen 4, but it's like a top 5 Pokemon in OU. Like, because it has Magic Guard, Softball. It's like the best defensive wall in the game. But it's UU. So if Clefable rose to OU, which it deserves to, Gen 4 UU would look totally different because now they don't have Clefable, who's been part of the metagame. I guess the reason it hasn't happened is because like someone's got to do all that work. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they want to preserve the tiering for whatever reason. I'm not 100% sure, but I think people like how Gen 4 UU's list is right now, even though it's paradoxical and like some Pokemon there deserve to be OU or maybe UUBL. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I feel like the main problem with this, and thank you for the explanation, by the way. I feel like I understand it a lot better now. It seems like usage would be the problem because, I mean, or rather the player base, smaller player base being able to drastically influence the usage. So, you know, like say in Gen 2, I don't know how many people play on the Gen 2 ladder, probably like 4. Say they, you know, just don't go on 1 month. And then all of a sudden Snorlax drops to UU. You know, obviously this is, you know, kind of comedic one, but you could have like really drastic tier shifts just because of inactivity and trends. And I'm guessing that's partly what they want to avoid. Because a lot of past gen, particularly past gen lower tiers, like you could talk about like Gen 5 RU. How many people seriously play Gen 5 RU? Like, I don't know.
It doesn't
10?
have a ladder, yeah.
It's like,
so it's in the circuit, like a Black and White Premier League or whatever, where they play all the Gen 5 old gens. But and like RU Premier League, where they play every gen of RU. There's one, but that's where it would be played.
So I guess, okay, well, I mean, even we could find like, say, like the least active one that still does have a ladder. If that was just kind of shifting all the time, that would maybe kind of make it sort of a joke in tournaments, because it would be like, well, I mean, who knows what's good anymore? The teams, so I guess I can see why they kind of want to freeze it in that sense. But if you've got a community that's willing to make that tiering decision, I would say probably keep it frozen. But just if they want to, if the community wants to, and there are people that are willing to do that work to test it and bring it down, absolutely go for it. I mean, if a community's active enough to want to change and try things, why not let them do it?
I think that's the thing, yeah. Like the way Gen 3 does it is awesome. Like it's just manually done by people, and occasionally things rise and fall, like to keep up with current trends and stuff. But it's like it's not usage based at all. It's based on tourney results somewhat, and just like the opinions of good players. So that requires work, you know, like someone would have to do that for Gen 4 or 5. But that's the problem. Like you got to find people willing to do that, and it's like volunteer work that not everyone wants to do.
Yeah, I mean that seems fair. I feel like if a metagame doesn't have the people willing to put in that work, then it probably doesn't have enough players, and it ought to be frozen. And if not, then it probably shouldn't be frozen. So it seems like that maybe in a way sort of a self-correcting problem.
I have like a semi-hot take sort of related to this. I feel like sometimes people request things like this, but my opinion is that they don't actually care that much. I don't think people would play like Gen 4 UU if this happened. The classic one is everyone wanted Uber's UU because the OU ban list was getting massive. So they made, like, a guy came and made Uber's UU, and it has a community, but 90% of the people clamoring for Uber's UU don't play it and don't care about it. They just want something to complain about. They're like, we need to take action. We need to do this thing, but they're not really interested in engaging with it actually. It's funny because in this post, a lot of people said ADV UUBL should be its own tier, and they don't know that it is its own tier. Someone had made it. You could play it on the ladder last month or the month before. There's a community for it. Like, there's a Smogon thread. They have their own bands and stuff. You didn't even look it up, buddy. It exists.
I
And
think
you're
you
like
are
in the
absolutely
comments
right.
complaining for it, and you don't even know that it exists.
No, I completely agree. No, that is absolutely valid. You definitely could go and make Gen 4 UU and almost nobody would play it. Not to, of course, not to attack Aldwych personally. Maybe Aldwych is one of the few that would absolutely
Yeah,
go.
maybe they. I'm saying in general. I'm
But
saying
yeah,
in
no,
general.
I completely agree. In general, people really do just like complaining about things that they think don't logically make sense or they want something added. Yeah, though I will say shout out to the or not Gen, shout out to the UUbers community in Gen 9 though. It's very cool. I did an invitational tour there
Yeah, it's awesome.
recently. Got smoked, got destroyed. I got like just decimated by hyper offense. It is not a forgiving metagame. You got to know what you're doing. But it was fun, and I think if you took the time to learn the metagame, it would be really interesting because there are so many Uber Pokemon in there that I mean, like the level of defense is not very good. There aren't like that many insane walls, and the level of offense is crazy because you've got stuff like just like Kyurem White and the Origin forms sitting down there. So if you really just do not like really slow paced games, you should give UUbers a try.
Yeah, it's sick that exists and like all those. It's a bonus problem for generations. They're just legendaries that suck in Ubers, or like even banned Pokemon that suck in Ubers. So I think it should have existed for a while for sure. It's just yeah, I think a lot of the people who complain about these things don't actually care that much.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely true, I'd say. All right, well this is the last hot take that I have is from Dr. Bognor who says bug types should resist fairy and be super effective against electric types. And he goes on to explain this saying, bug needs love competitively. And also it justifies because it may seem a little weird that bug types are super effective against electric types, but when a device has a problem, you can say it has a bug, which is that's kind of cool. And then I guess bugs crawling
Hmm.
around inside a computer would be bad for it, so there's that too. What do you think of this? So it's bug should resist fairy and be super effective against electric.
I think buffing bug offensively is dangerous because it would buff U-turn, which more than just bug types get, right? Like that would make U-turn way more spammable than it already is. It would nerf electric significantly, which electric's already suffering, kind of.
Mhm.
Like electric's not a great type on its own. So I'm down to buff bug defensively though.
Yeah, I
What was it,
had the
fairy resist?
exact same thought. When I saw this, I was like, no, 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 don't buff bug offensively because it's not good. Buffing bug types offensively is not actually going to make bug types much better. It's just going to make U-turn spamming way better. And as you said, electric types not really in need of more pain. Bug resisting fairy though, I like that. Fairy is too good. I think fairy needs a nerf.
Yeah, like just a resist is not even that bad. It'd probably still be great type.
Oh, it's
It would give
absolutely.
bugs some defensive reason to exist. I think I've seen this one pretty commonly. The bugs should resist fairy. You
Yeah.
could twist some logic into it too, like bugs are immune to mysticism because they're too small. Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Too unintelligent, I guess. They're not going to be dazzled. They'll just go on living instinctually. So
It's
that's
because of their antennae. They're not susceptible to the same sense as we are. They're above that kind of thing.
yeah. No, so I like that. Bug could use a little love. I mean, you could make like rock resist fairy. I don't know, something like maybe I. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, but fairy needs a nerf, and I'm happy to hand out resists to fairy.
Indeed. I've got one last one here from Scribble8447. Says competitive players, myself included, end up wrong about how good a new Pokemon will end up being, significantly more than they end up right. Pokemon has too many variables and too much nuance. Very few of us are able to accurately predict the mon's viability without seeing it in the context of the metagame. I think that's pretty damn true, to be honest. I also have gotten things so wrong. Like, I thought Hisuian Guju would be broken. I thought Cleaver will be good. In practice, they sucked. And then Pokemon like Pecharunt has risen. I thought Pecharunt would stink, but it's really good actually because of the meta surrounding it, not because of its inherent strengths or weaknesses, but because it's like an answer to Ogerpon, Wellspring, Zamazenta, and stuff, and Malignant Chain.
Yeah,
It can like stomach a great Tusk hit and stuff.
You're right, but I mean, like you're right about those examples, but I think I disagree with this take overall. I think there's kind of a bit of cognitive bias here because all the times that you're talking about are cases that surprised you, which are you're more likely to remember that, right? Like for example, Great Tusk. We were like, oh, that'll probably be good. And then it was. Kingambit, super bulky, got, buffs just by letting team members die. That'll be good.
Goldengo,
and look, it was.
Valiant.
Goldengo, Ival. Like, so many Pokemon were just like, oh, that looks good. And then it was. Now, were there occasions where something like, we didn't expect it would be great and then it turned out to be a lot better? Absolutely. A lot of people slept on low kicks early on. And that's now like it's A ranked or A minus ranked in OU, which is amazing. Good for low kicks. And then, as you said, like Pecharunt kind of came into the tier, sank to like 0 usage because people said it sucked and, couldn't touch Kingambit, couldn't touch Goldengo. And now here it is. But those are surprises, and those surprises tend to stick out in your mind. But I feel like there are so many Pokemon we just looked at and said, yeah, that's going to be good. And then it was. And because nobody was surprised, we didn't think about it. So yes, mistakes are made for sure, especially with metagame context Pokemon like Pecharunt that are going to be, like don't appear broken on paper and seem to have a lot of obstacles in their way, but then end up rising. But yeah, I'd say they're right more often than they're wrong. They're wrong a lot. And absolutely, metagame can make a lot of surprising things happen, but they're definitely right more often than they're wrong.
You're damn right. You just called out my own bias there. I do think about the exceptions, but yeah, like 90%. When I was looking at the initial Gen 9 list, I remember seeing Tuska, Goldengo. I think I overvalued Slitherwing back then. I thought Slitherwing would be more of the meta. It wasn't, but like most of the Roaring Moon was broken. Even back then, there was, Palafin, Chimpa, Fluttermane. Mm-hmm. They were everywhere, and they were all appropriately used according to their power level, which was high.
Yeah. Now, I will say credit a little bit to Scribble here. They may be talking about like pre-game release, like as in just like theory modding, based on what little information we have, at which point I'd say, yeah, then you'd be correct when we don't know stats and move pool and we just like have maybe a signature move or, like we know that, Kingambit is an evolution of Bisharp, so we think it'll be really, really good or we're anticipating Hydrapple. So yeah, if you're talking about like pre-release, I'd say, yeah, people are probably wrong more often than they're right because every single Pokemon that hasn't been released yet, everybody's like, it's going to be broken. It'll be broken. Zeraora, about to drop. Oh, it's going to be broken. It's going to have like Ice Punch and Iron Fist and no, so it's like, yeah, everybody thinks a Pokemon that hasn't been released yet is going to be an insane top tier threat. But once we actually have it, like even as far as like the first day, like day 1, week 1, generally people are right about what's going to be good more often.
I would agree. I think one set of Pokemon that I ended up being pretty wrong about was the set of like Hisuian Pokemon, Legends Arceus. When those were like, when the stats were leaked, but they weren't in the game yet. I got a lot of those wrong. Like I think I overvalued Ursaluna a lot. Ursaluna is decent, but didn't end up being as good as we thought. Hisuian Gudra, Cleavor. I was right about Samurott, but a lot of those ones were a little harder to evaluate. I think but the initial crop of Gen 9 Pokemon was like, yeah, all these Paradox Pokemon, most of them are insane. Goldengo, obviously. You're right, I think, in general.
All right, well, I guess that's it. This was a lot of fun. And Jim, once again, thank you so much for joining. Remember to check out his channel. And if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to both of us. And I will see you guys next time.